Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture 3 on the respiratory physiology series. So in this class, we are going to discuss about the oxygen transport, the mechanisms through which the oxygen that is present in the environment gets inside the body and it is transported so that it will reach each and every part of the cell. So, in the sequential steps of the oxygen transfer, the first point to be remembered or to be discussed is how the oxygen from the environment gets inside to that of the body. So, the first point is how it moves from the environment to that of the lungs. So, we had seen in the mechanics of breathing in the last class, whenever the inspiration is initiated from the medulla oblongata, it causes the contraction of the diaphragm and also the external intercostal muscles, both which makes the volume of the thoracic cavity to increase. So, whenever the volume is increased, we have seen that the pressure decreases. So, the pressure of the air that was present outside in the environment was minus 60 mmHg, which will be reduced inside the body through these mechanism according to the Boyle's law to minus 1 mmHg or 759 mmHg. So, it is lesser, and we have already know that the gases will move from the area of higher pressure to that of the lesser pressure. So, the air will move from outside through the respiratory apparatus and it will reach the lungs, that is the inside of the body. So, that air also consists of the oxygen. The oxygen inside the body is transported by two important mechanisms. Number one, the oxygen is bound to the hemoglobin molecule. At about 98% of the oxygen inside the body is transported in this form, that is the oxyhemoglobin. Oxygen binds to the hemoglobin and it forms oxyhemoglobin and it is transported in this fashion. Whereas about 2%, about 1.5 to 2% of the oxygen is transported in the dissolved form. It is dissolved in the plasma, that is the watery portion of the blood, or it is also dissolved in the erythrocyte fluid, the water that is present inside the RBC. However, the major way of transport of the oxygen inside the body is with binding with the hemoglobin molecule. So, to move, to transport in such a fashion, number one, whatever the oxygen that is present in the outside has to first get inside to that of the alveoli. So, it gets in through the pressure difference that is created by increased volume of the thoracic cavity. In the alveoli, the partial pressure of the oxygen is about 104 mmHg, which is greater than the partial pressure of the oxygen that is coming through the pulmonary capillaries. So, it is 40 mmHg. So, there is a difference in the partial pressure of the oxygen in the alveoli and in the pulmonary capillary. So, the oxygen gets transported or it gets diffused from the alveoli inside to the pulmonary capillaries crossing the respiratory membrane. The respiratory membrane is made up of the epithelial cells, its basement membrane, a small interstitial space, the endothelial basement membrane and the endothelial cells of the capillaries, pulmonary capillaries. So first, the oxygen that is present in the alveoli diffuses to the interstitial space. From the interstitial space, it diffuses inside the endothelium, pulmonary capillaries. Here, it can get dissolved in the watery portion of the blood, that is the plasma. However, majority of the oxygen goes inside the RBCs. So, inside the RBC, the oxygen will bind with the hemoglobin molecule that is present inside the RBC. So, hemoglobin is always present inside the RBC only. So, when it passes out from the pulmonary capillaries, the partial pressure of the oxygen in the arterial side is about 100 mmHg. If you see the partial pressure of the oxygen in the tissue or in a cell, it is less than 30 mmHg, 30 or 30 mmHg. So, again there is a difference in the partial pressure of the oxygen in the arterial side to that of the tissue. Therefore, the oxygen moves from the arterial blood to that of the inside of the tissue. That is, whatever the oxygen that is bound to the hemoglobin here gets unbounded or gets released and it goes inside to that of a cell for the cellular respiration process. So, whenever the blood leaves out here, it has got the partial pressure of 40 mmHg. So, when it reaches the lungs, pulmonary capillary, it again binds with the oxygen. So, it goes on transmitted in this fashion. So, here we can clearly see the movement of the oxygen is in downward cascade. So, it is also called downhill movement of the oxygen. So, the downhill or down cascade movement of the oxygen refers to the movement of the oxygen from the alveoli to that of the tissue according to the difference in the partial pressure of the oxygen. So, the difference in the partial pressure in different segments helps in the binding of the oxygen and unbinding of the oxygen. The binding occurs in the alveoli, unbinding occurs in the tissue level. So, coming back to the way in which or why the amount of the oxygen that is transported in the dissolved form is always lesser. So, it is very well explained by Henry's law. So, we had discussed in the last class, the movement of the gas in a solution depends upon its solubility. The solubility of oxygen is very, very less. It is about 0.000003 ml. Therefore, only 0.3 ml of the oxygen can be transported by 100 ml of blood. So, it is much lesser. That is the reason we do have the hemoglobin molecule. If there was no hemoglobin molecule, then the body of an animal or a human being had needed an increased quantity of blood, a very huge liters of blood, so that the required amount of the oxygen could have been transported. So the oxygen transfer is made easier inside the body by binding with the hemoglobin molecule. So we'll discuss few things about the movement or the transportation via the hemoglobin molecule. So the hemoglobin molecule is composed of 4 polypeptide globin chains. You know, hemoglobin has got a globin part and also the heme part. So the globin part is the protein part and it is made up of 4 polypeptide chains. 4 polypeptide chains. Whereas the heme part is an organic part and we all know it is made up of protoporphyrin ring. Protoporphyrin ring. And it has got a central iron molecule. So the iron which is present in the heme is always in the Fe2 plus or in the ferrous state. Then only it binds with the oxygen. So the oxygen is bound to the iron. If you see the iron that is present in the protoporphyrin, it has got 6 bonds. The 4 bond is attached to the nitrogen atoms which is present in the center of the porphyrin ring. One bond, so if you see iron, it is attached very much firmly through the 4 bonds to the nitrogen atom that is present in the porphyrin ring. One of the bond attaches to the histidine residue. It is also called proximal histidine residue at the position 87 on the alpha globin chain. The other bond is with the oxygen. So there are total 6 bonds for this iron inside the porphyrin ring. The attachment of this oxygen to this heme molecule is in a reversible fashion. So it is a reversible reaction. So the heme molecule attaches with that of the oxygen in a reversible fashion. So one iron molecule in the ferrous state attaches to one molecule of oxygen. So in a hemoglobin molecule there are 4 iron, or in other terms 4 heme molecule which is attached or which is found in the 4 polypeptide chains. So one hemoglobin molecule has got 4 polypeptide chains. 1, 2, 3, 4 polypeptide chains. Each polypeptide chain consists of one heme molecule. So there are 4 heme molecules. 4 heme molecules. So each heme molecule can attach, or it has got Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus. So we do have 4 Fe2 plus ferrous state, 4 iron in ferrous state. Each can attach to 1. So therefore 4 oxygen molecules can be attached. So one molecule of hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecules. So how it is 4? By attaching to 4 iron that is present in 4 heme that is present in 4 polypeptide chains. The second most important point to be remembered here is that the hemoglobin molecule is allosteric. What do you mean by allosteric? There will be alteration by the means of a conformational change, or there will be a change in the shape that is induced by different molecules. So, what do you mean by it when we apply to the hemoglobin? When an oxygen binds to one heme molecule, it increases the affinity of the other heme molecule for the oxygen binding. Again, I will repeat. So, whenever one heme molecule, for example, this one is first bound to oxygen. So, whenever this heme molecule is attached with the oxygen, it causes a conformational change such that the remaining others will attach to the oxygen in a faster rate. It increases the affinity of the other heme groups to attach to the oxygen in a faster rate. This is called cooperative binding. The property is called cooperativity, and the binding here is called cooperative binding. So, what do you mean by cooperative binding? The binding of one heme molecule with oxygen increases the affinity of the other heme molecule to attach with the oxygen in a faster rate. So, we can say the oxyhemoglobin has got a different structure than compared to that of the deoxyhemoglobin. So, how it is made here? If you look at the mechanism, so whenever the oxygen binds to the iron that is present in the center is pulled back, so that there is change in the structure of the hemoglobin. So, the change in one of the molecule is transferred to the others because it is closely interacted, which increases the affinity of the other to bind with oxygen. Therefore, the hemoglobin molecule, the quaternary structure of the hemoglobin molecule is differentiated as either T form, T stands for tens or tout, or R form, T form or R form of the hemoglobin molecule. So, what do you mean by T form or tens form of the hemoglobin? It is the deoxyhemoglobin, which is not attached with the oxygen. Here, the oxygen attachment is made difficult. The space here is tighter, so that the oxygen cannot attach with the iron that is present inside. We have R form or relaxed form. R form or relaxed form is a form of oxyhemoglobin. Once the oxygen attaches to the iron molecule that is present, the space here is enlarged, so that the oxygen can easily bind with the iron here. This easy enlarged space was made possible because of the attachment first by the cooperative binding mechanism. The T form of the hemoglobin is attached to carbon dioxide and it is stabilized by 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate. We do have something called oxygen binding capacity of the hemoglobin. So, oxygen binding capacity of the hemoglobin is the amount of oxygen in milliliter, amount of the oxygen in milliliter carried by 1 gram of hemoglobin. Oxygen binding capacity, or it is also called BO2 binding capacity, refers to the oxygen in milliliter, that is in carried by each gram of hemoglobin. It is also called Hufner's constant. Hufner's constant, Hufners, Hufner's constant. Theoretically, this Hufner's constant is 1.39 ml, 1.39 ml. However, in an empirical state, it is said to be around 1.34 ml. So, 1 gram of hemoglobin can carry 1.3 ml of oxygen. So, while discussing about the oxygen transport, the most important concept that has to be highlighted is the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. So, this is the curve that is obtained by plotting the percentage saturation of hemoglobin against the partial pressure of the oxygen. So, this curve explains us the loading and unloading of the oxygen from hemoglobin molecule. So, in the x-axis we have the partial pressure of oxygen. So, PO2 here refers to the partial pressure of the oxygen in mmHg, millimeters of mercury, whereas the y-axis here refers to the percentage saturation, the percentage saturation. Here the percentage saturation mean the amount of hemoglobin bound to oxygen in percentage. It is the amount of the hemoglobin bound to oxygen in percentage. This curve explains us that as the partial pressure of the oxygen keeps on increasing, as there is progressive increase in the partial pressure of the oxygen, the percentage of the hemoglobin bound to the oxygen keeps on increasing. So, increased partial pressure will increase the percentage saturation of hemoglobin, that is increased binding of oxygen to that of the hemoglobin molecule. So, if you see it in a graph, when the partial pressure of the oxygen is 100, normally the partial pressure of the arterial blood is about 100 mmHg. When the partial pressure of the oxygen is 100 mmHg, the percentage binding or the percentage saturation of the hemoglobin is about 97.5%. So, here it is 97.5% of the hemoglobin is bound to or with the oxygen. Even if you see at the partial pressure of the oxygen 40 mmHg, that is the partial pressure of the oxygen that is seen in the tissue, the percentage saturation is about 75. So at 100 mmHg of the partial pressure, there is percentage saturation of 97.5%. So when the partial pressure of gets decreased to 40 mmHg at the tissue level, it is still 75% saturated. That is, whenever the partial pressure is decreased from 100 to 40 mmHg, there is unloading for about 23% of the oxygen. So 23% of the oxygen, so it is 97.5 minus 75, it is around 23% of the oxygen is unloaded. If at all, if the partial pressure of the oxygen still decreases, then the hemoglobin saturation also decreases. For example, think if the partial pressure of the oxygen decreases to about 20 mmHg. For example, in strenuous exercise, during heavy exercise, it decreases because during heavy exercise, oxygen consumption is more by the tissues. Then the hemoglobin concentration or the saturation decreases to 30%. So the unloading is at around 68% of the oxygen is unloaded. So this clearly explains the graph that as the partial pressure of oxygen decreases, the binding capacity of the oxygen to the hemoglobin decreases. As it goes on increasing, the percentage saturation of the hemoglobin to the oxygen increases. So this curve, whenever we plot, we do get a curve in this fashion, which is referred to be as sigmoid curve. So the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve is a sigmoid curve or S-shaped curve. What is the speciality of this S-shaped or sigmoid shaped curve? It has got a steep and a plateau. A plateau and a very steep structure over it. So what does it explain? It explains that whatever may be the increase in the partial pressure of more than 100 mmHg of the oxygen, the binding capacity remains the same. It is fully saturated, or it can go up to 100%, not more than that, because the hemoglobin molecule is completely saturated with binding with oxygen. However, in the steeper phase, it explains that a little decrease in the partial pressure of oxygen, there will be more unbinding of the oxygen from the hemoglobin molecule. So in the plateau phase, whatever may be the increase in the partial pressure, it is fully saturated, then there is no extra addition of the oxygen molecule. But in the steeper phase, it states a little decrease in the partial pressure of the oxygen, there will be more unbinding of the oxygen from the hemoglobin molecule. So the attachment increases as the partial pressure increases. Once it is saturated, then there is no extra attachment, but lesser than when it goes down and down and down, as it decreases to about 20, 30, 20 and 10 mmHg, the unloading from the hemoglobin is more than that of the attachment of the hemoglobin. So, partial pressure of the oxygen determines oxygen combination with hemoglobin. So you can simply put it as the partial pressure of the oxygen is more, oxygen binds with hemoglobin. That is, we do have association or binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. As the partial pressure of oxygen decreases, the oxygen unbinds or it disassociates from hemoglobin molecule. So the concept here to be remembered is the P50. So we do have what is called as P50. So what is P50? It is a partial pressure of the oxygen in blood with which the hemoglobin is 50% saturated. So here if you see 50% saturation is seen normally at the partial pressure of 27 mmHg. So in this very low partial pressure also, hemoglobin is about 50% saturated. Change in the value of P50, change in the value of P50 describes whether the curve shift to left or shift to right. So we do have two terminologies to be remembered. So the standard dissociation curve, which is sigmoid, can shift to right or shift to left. We will see in a moment what do you exactly mean by shift to right and shift to left. Before that, if in a normal condition, if the partial pressure of the oxygen is 100 mmHg, if the partial pressure of the oxygen is 100 mmHg and if the saturation, percentage saturation is 97.5% or 98%, and if the oxygen delivered is about 20 ml per 100 ml of the blood or 20 volume percent, and if the hemoglobin percentage is 15 gram per deciliter, so if the partial pressure in the arterial blood is 40 mmHg and the percentage saturation is 72 or 75%, 72 to 75%, and if the hemoglobin concentration is 15 gram per deciliter, then the oxygen carried is about 14.5 ml. So here the oxygen carried is 20 ml. So here the oxygen is about 14.5 ml. Therefore, 20 minus 14.5 at around 5 ml of the oxygen is yielded by 100 ml of blood. So where the 5 ml gone, it went to the tissue inside. So 5 ml of the blood is yielded by the 100 ml of the blood if the normal partial pressure of 100 mmHg and 40 mmHg is seen. Now coming back to the concept of shift to right and shift to left. Shift to left of the curve mean, so you can see here it is the shift to left. It increases the oxygen affinity. That is, less oxygen is yielded for each reduction in partial pressure of oxygen. So, whenever the partial pressure is decreased, the oxygen yield is less, or in other terms, it increases the affinity of the oxygen to that of the hemoglobin molecule. So, when this shift to left is seen, it is seen during number 1, decreased carbon dioxide tension, or whenever there is increased pH, or whenever there is increased temperature, or whenever there is decreased bisphosphoglycerate concentration, or it is also seen in fetal hemoglobin. So, whenever this is seen, there is increased attachment of the oxygen to that of the hemoglobin molecule, then we call it as it is shift to left. We do have a condition called shift to right, or the standard curve can shift to the right side. Shift to right here mean there is decreased oxygen affinity. Shift to right mean there is decreased oxygen affinity. So, therefore, it favors unloading. So, the oxygen unloads or disassociates from the hemoglobin molecule. It is seen near the tissue region, where it is much more essential. Here, the more of oxygen is yielded for the reduction, each reduction in the partial pressure of oxygen. So, if there is less, so just a decrease in partial pressure of oxygen, more amount of the oxygen is yielded out. This is seen during increased carbon dioxide concentration, decreased pH, increased temperature, increased concentration of bisphosphoglycerate. So, all these things are seen in the tissue metabolism. So, during the tissue metabolism, there is increased production of carbon dioxide. There is increased production of, during the metabolic activity, the hydrogen ions, which causes the decrease in the pH. The metabolism causes increase in the temperature. So, all these is seen in the tissue level, which causes the curve to shift to right. So, coming for the word BPG, or it is the bisphosphoglycerate. So, 2,3. So, BPG is referred to be as 2,3 bisphosphoglycerate. So, what is it? So, 2,3 bisphosphoglycerate. It is an organic phosphate which will promote the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin. It is produced inside the RBC due to the shunt reaction of glycolysis. It attaches with the hemoglobin and it unloads the oxygen molecule. So, it decreases the affinity of the oxygen to bind with the oxygen. So, this 2,3 bisphosphoglycerate production is increased during the anemia. It is also increased in the high altitude. So, the conditions of the high altitude is produced more and it decreases the affinity of the oxygen to bind with the hemoglobin. So if there is increased 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, it will shift the curve to the right side. So to see again the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, we have explained this curve explains about the oxygen loading and unloading with the hemoglobin molecule. So we had stated that it is a sigmoid curve where we do have the steeper end and also the plateau end, and each reduction in the PO2 in the steeper end yields more of oxygen. So this oxygen dissociation curve is not always stable. It either moves to the right or it moves to the left. So this dynamic change of moving to the right and moving to the left keeps on occurring inside the body. So we have seen few of the conditions where the shift is seen towards the right or the left. To come again, the shift to right always indicates decreased oxygen affinity. That means more of oxygen is yielded. It is seen in the tissues where during the tissue metabolism there is increased carbon dioxide production, decrease in the pH, increased in the temperature, and also the other factor which included the 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate. As it has been already explained, it is an organic phosphate that is produced during the glycolysis in the erythrocytes. Normally, this 2,3-biphosphoglycerate is metabolized. If this is produced in an increased quantity, it will compete with the site of the oxygen and the oxygen affinity towards the hemoglobin is decreased. In the opposite side, we do have the curve that will shift to the left, which indicate an increased affinity of the oxygen to the hemoglobin molecule, which is where the yield is lesser, which favors the association of the oxygen towards the hemoglobin, which is seen in the decreased carbon dioxide, increased pH, decreased temperature, whenever the concentration of 2,3-BPG is less, and most importantly the fetal hemoglobin has got more affinity to the oxygen rather than the adult hemoglobin, HbA. So here the most important point, the other important point to be remembered is the relationship between the hydrogen ion concentration and the carbon dioxide on the oxygen binding to the hemoglobin, or on the affinity of the hemoglobin to bind with the affinity of the oxygen to bind with the hemoglobin. This is given by Bohr effect. It was explained first by Bohr and this is called as Bohr effect. So what is Bohr effect? It states whenever it gives the relationship between the hydrogen ion concentration and the carbon dioxide on the affinity of the oxygen to that of the hemoglobin molecule. That is, it can be explained at the tissue level. At the tissue level, the concentration of the oxygen is more and the hydrogen ion concentration is also more, which leads to decreased pH. So the increased concentration of carbon dioxide and increased concentration of the hydrogen ion concentration always decreases the affinity of the oxygen to the hemoglobin. So what happens? The oxygen comes out, which is important at the tissue level. If you see the same at the lung level, the opposite should happen. The concentration of the carbon dioxide is lesser and the concentration of hydrogen ion concentration is mainly the effect of carbon dioxide is lesser, which is most important for the binding of oxygen to that of the hemoglobin, which is most important at the lung level. This is most important at the tissue level, which is explained by Bohr, and the effect is called as Bohr effect. And the last point to be discussed in the oxygen transport is a terminology called fractional extraction. The fraction extraction is defined as the fraction of the oxygen that is given up by the blood as it passes through the tissue capillaries. So, what is the amount of oxygen that is extracted from the blood that is moving through the capillaries into the tissue? As we have already seen, as it is explained, if the hemoglobin concentration is 15 gram %, if the PO2 is 100 mmHg, then it is 5 ml of oxygen that is yielded out. So, the fractional extraction is, so it carries 20 ml of oxygen, but 5 ml is yielded out. So, the fractional extraction is 1/4. So, the fractional extraction is 1/4. Again to repeat, 15 gram % of the hemoglobin, when partial pressure of the oxygen is 100 mmHg, when it is carrying 20 ml of oxygen, it will yield 5 ml of oxygen per 100 ml of blood. So, the fractional extraction is 1/4. So, overall, to review what we had studied. So, how the oxygen gets transported from the external environment and it is made to reach to the cell. Number one, we have studied that the oxygen that is present in the outside, that is environment, will move inside the lungs first because of the decreased pressure that is created by increased volume by the contraction of the inspiratory muscles. Second, the gas, the oxygen diffuses through the different segments because of the partial pressure difference that we have already seen. The way of transport, the major way of transport is bound to hemoglobin, about 98%, and only about 2% is transported by binding with plasma, by dissolved in the plasma. And we have also seen the important oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, which is the sigmoid curve, which will explain the oxygen binding and unbinding from the hemoglobin molecule depending upon the partial pressure of the oxygen. If the partial pressure is increased, it favors the binding. When it goes on decreasing, it favors unbinding. And we have also seen there are conditions where this curve can shift to left or shift to right depending upon different factors. We also studied the Bohr's law or the Bohr effect, where it explains the effect of hydrogen ion concentration and carbon dioxide on the oxygen binding and unbinding on the hemoglobin molecule. So, this is about the oxygen transfer mechanism.